Hi everyone, so I just want to do a little refresher on how to round. So one thing I told you in our first lesson, the rules for rounding. So if you remember that little saying I taught you, it was 5 and above. We're going to give it a shove. I'll just do a little arrow. 4 and below. We're going to let it go. And that just means that we keep the number the same. Number stays the same. Okay, so we'll keep that. So if it's the number 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, we're going to let it go and just stay what it is. If it ends up being a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 next door, then those numbers would tell it to go up to the next digit. So I'm going to give you a number, and you can try to solve this with me. So let's say I want to round the number 56,408 to the nearest 10,000. So the digit that's underlined, that's the number that you're rounding to. That's the number that we're going to either bump up or keep the same. So if you remember from the other lesson, the boss number, the number that tells it what to do, is the number right next door. So 6 is our boss number. This is the number that's going to tell 5 what to do. So follow the rule. Is 6 4 and below, or is 6 5 and above? Where do you see 6? So I spot 6 on this side right here, so that means it's 5 and above. So that means 6 is going to tell 5 to bump up to a 6. So it's the very next digit that comes after that. So what comes after 5? 6. So it's going to bump up to a 6. Now what happens with all these other numbers? The 6, the 4, the 0, the 8. If you remember, everything after it becomes a, I hope you said it, 0. So the 6 becomes a 0, the 4 becomes a 0, and we keep all of the same places. They just all get replaced with zeros. So essentially, we're saying that 56,408 is really, really close to 60,000. We're rounding up because the number 56 is closer to 60 than it is to 50, right? So we wouldn't keep the 5 the same. We're going to bump it up to a 6, and everything after becomes a 0. Okay, so let's try another one. Let's round 200,052. And let's round it to the nearest 10. So again, the number that's underlined, that's the number we're going to round to. And it's either going to stay the same or it's going to bump up. The boss number is the number to the right. So the 2 is going to tell it what to do. So 2 is 4 and below, right? 2's over here. Oops, 2's over here. So that means it's going to let it go. It's going to keep 5 the same, and everything after becomes a 0. But remember, if there are numbers to the left of what we're rounding to, those numbers just stay the same. We're not going to change them. So this is going to stay 200,000. We said the 5 is going to stay the same, and then anything after it becomes a 0. So that 2 is now going to become a 0. I forgot something. Oh my goodness, Miss Heath. I think I forgot to put a 0 here for the hundreds. Hope you guys caught that. All right, so that should be 200,052. And now it rounds to 200,050. All right, let's do a hard one. All right, so this is 99,407, and let's round to the nearest 10,000 again. So this is what happens when it's a 9. It's a little trickier. So if the number next door is a 9, it's going to tell the 9 to bump up, right? Because it's 5 and above. But when it bumps up, what is it going to bump up to? So it's going to bump up to the next the next number, which is 10, right? So, but the problem is that it doesn't just fit nicely into one place value. So what's going to happen is you're going to replace the 9 with a 10, and everything after is still going to become a 0, but we're just going to have an extra place value towards the left. So now that 9 becomes a 0, the 4 becomes a 0, we'll keep that 0, 7 becomes a 0. And so now we are essentially saying that 99,407 is about 100,000. When we're rounding to the nearest 10,000 here, it bumps it up to the 100,000th place, and that's okay. So when it is a 9 that you're rounding up, you would round it up to 10. And just make sure that you had enough placeholder zeros to cover all the rest of the numbers. All right, so I think that's a pretty good quick review. If you guys needed more help with rounding, you can always go back and rewatch the lesson from Tuesday, or at least take a look at the slides. But hopefully this helped kind of refresh your minds, and you can do the exit slip attached with this lesson to review rounding.